Here's a simple test that could save your snake plant's life. Stick your finger 2 inches into the soil. If it's still moist from your last watering a week ago, your plant is in serious trouble. You see, the #1 killer of snake plants isn't neglect. It's actually too much love in the form of overwatering. Today I'm going to show you the exact signs that mean your plant is drowning and the emergency rescue steps that can bring even the most waterlogged snake plant back from the brink of death. But first, we need to learn how to read the warning signals your plant has been sending you. Your snake plant has been trying to tell you something important, and today we're going to learn its distress language. Most gardeners see yellowing leaves and think their plant needs a good drink, but that's often the exact opposite of what's happening. Your plant is actually drowning, and those yellow leaves are its way of waving a white flag. The first warning sign is yellowing that starts right at the base of the leaf where it meets the soil and works its way up toward the tip. This isn't the natural aging process we sometimes see in older leaves. Natural aging yellows from the tip downward over weeks or even months. But when overwatering is the culprit, that yellow creeps upward from the base much more quickly than natural aging. Here's where you need to get hands-on with your plant. Gently touch the base of those yellowing leaves where they emerge from the soil. Healthy snake plant leaves feel firm and sturdy, like a thick piece of leather. But when your plant is waterlogged, those leaves feel soft or mushy instead. You might even notice they give slightly under pressure, like pressing on an overripe tomato. This mushy texture tells us the plant's tissues are breaking down from too much moisture. But here's the warning sign that many people miss entirely. After you water your snake plant, lift the entire pot. Notice how heavy it feels. Now, here's the secret most gardeners don't know. A healthy snake plant in properly draining soil should feel noticeably lighter within 3 to 4 days as the water drains away and evaporates. Think of it like a sponge that's been wrung out versus one that's still soaking wet. If you lift your pot a week after watering and it still feels surprisingly heavy, that's your plant telling you the soil is holding on to way too much moisture. The roots are essentially sitting in a swamp, unable to breathe properly. Healthy roots need oxygen just as much as they need water, and waterlogged soil cuts off that vital air supply. When you see these 3 signs together, yellowing leaves that start from the base and creep upward, a soft or mushy texture when you touch those yellow areas, and a pot that feels heavy days after watering, your plant is drowning in too much moisture. The root system is likely struggling to function properly, and every day you wait makes the problem worse. Now, I don't want you to panic if you're seeing these signs. The good news is that recognizing these early warning signals means we can still save your green friend. Snake plants are remarkably tough, and they can recover from overwatering if we act quickly and give them the right care. Think of these warning signs like your plant's way of having a conversation with you. Just like a friend might tell you they're not feeling well, your snake plant is communicating its distress through these physical changes. The yellowing leaves are essentially the plant's way of redirecting its energy away from damaged parts and toward the healthy sections that still have a chance. When leaves feel soft and mushy, the plant is telling you that those tissues can no longer function properly, and that heavy pot is like your plant holding up a sign that says too much water, not enough air. Understanding this plant language means you'll never again wonder whether your snake plant needs more water or less. You'll be able to spot trouble before it becomes a crisis, and your plants will thank you for it with strong, healthy growth. Most people think plant care is about following a strict watering schedule, but it's really about listening to what your plants are telling you. These 3 warning signs are your snake plant's vocabulary for "help me, I'm drowning." Once you know what to look for, you'll wonder how you ever missed these clear distress signals before. But my friends, there's one more warning sign that means we've moved beyond struggling into true emergency territory. And it's something you might notice even before you see any of these visual clues. That unmistakable smell is something you'll notice before you ever see the damage. When you walk past your plant and catch a whiff of something musty, sour, or downright rotten coming from the soil, that's root rot announcing itself loud and clear. This smell means the roots are literally decomposing in that waterlogged soil, and every single day you wait makes the damage spread further through your plant's root system. Root rot works like an infection, starting in one area and methodically destroying everything in its path. Those once healthy white roots are turning into black, mushy destruction underneath the soil where you can't see what's happening. Here's what makes this situation so tricky and dangerous. That telltale smell often comes and goes throughout the day. You might walk by your plant in the morning and notice something off, then check again in the evening and smell nothing at all. This inconsistent odor leads many people to think the problem resolved itself or that they imagined it in the first place. But root rot doesn't fix itself, my friends. While you're second guessing that smell, the rot is working underground 24 hours a day, slowly killing your plant from the bottom up. The odor might fade temporarily when air circulation improves or humidity drops, but the harmful microbes are still there, still eating away at your plant's root system. This is exactly why that finger test from our opening becomes so critical. If you detect any unusual smell around your plant and that soil is still wet days after your last watering, you're looking at a full crisis situation. Don't trust your nose alone when it comes to root rot, because that smell can be deceiving. What's actually happening in that soil soil is like food spoiling in your refrigerator. When vegetables sit in moisture for too long, they start to break down and smell terrible. The same process is happening to your snake plant's roots, except it's happening underground where you can't see the damage until it's already severe. The harmful bacteria and fungi that cause root rot are opportunistic. They're always present in soil, but they multiply rapidly when soil stays waterlogged for extended periods. These destructive microbes feed on decaying plant matter, transforming firm white or cream-colored roots into a black, mushy mess that feels like overcooked pasta when you touch it. The roots lose their ability to absorb water and nutrients, even though they're sitting in wet soil. Your plant essentially starves while drowning at the same time. Different types of harmful microbes produce different odors, which explains why some people describe the smell as musty, while others say it's more sour or putrid. Regardless of the exact scent, any unusual odor coming from your plant's soil should trigger immediate alarm bells. Once you detect that telltale odor, you need to act immediately. Root rot spreads exponentially, not gradually. What starts as damage to a few roots can consume the entire root system rapidly under the right conditions. The time window for rescue gets shorter as the infection spreads. Plants can survive losing 30 or even 50% of their root system if you act quickly enough, but once root rot claims more than 70% of the roots, recovery becomes extremely difficult, and many plants simply can't bounce back from that level of damage. Every day you delay action after detecting that smell gives the harmful microbes more time to destroy healthy tissue. The sooner you remove your plant from its waterlogged environment and cut away the infected roots, the better its chances of survival. Now, before we dive into emergency surgery, there's something crucial we need to address. Not every yellow leaf you see on your snake plant means disaster is striking. Understanding the difference between natural aging and crisis yellowing could save you from throwing away a perfectly healthy plant. Snake plants naturally shed their oldest, outermost leaves as they mature, and this normal process can look quite alarming if you're not familiar with how these tough plants behave over time. The key difference lies in the pattern of yellowing you observe. Natural aging starts at the very tips of the oldest leaves and progresses slowly downward over weeks or even months. It's like watching autumn come to a single leaf, with the color change moving gradually from tip to base as the plant redirects its energy elsewhere. Overwatering yellowing works in the complete opposite direction. It starts right at the soil line where the leaf meets the base, then spreads upward much more quickly. Think of it like water damage creeping up from the foundation of a house. The moisture starts where the leaf emerges from the waterlogged soil and works its way toward the tip as the plant's tissues break down. Natural aging affects maybe one leaf at a time, usually the largest, most mature ones that have been working hard for years to support the plant's growth. These veteran leaves have done their job, and the plant is simply making room for new growth by letting the oldest workers retire. Crisis yellowing from overwatering often hits multiple leaves simultaneously, creating a domino effect throughout your plant. When several leaves start yellowing at once, especially if they're younger or mid-sized leaves, that's your plant sending an emergency signal that something is seriously wrong with its growing conditions. Here's the test that will tell you exactly what you're dealing with. Gently squeeze those yellowing leaves between your thumb and forefinger. Naturally aging leaves remain firm and structured even as they change color. They might feel a bit thinner than the younger leaves, but they still have integrity and strength. Waterlogged leaves tell a completely different story through your fingertips. They feel soft or squishy when you apply gentle pressure, almost like they're filled with too much water. This mushy texture happens because the plant's cellular tissues are breaking down from excessive moisture and lack of oxygen reaching the root system. The location of yellowing also gives you critical diagnostic information. If you're seeing yellow changes on newer, smaller leaves while the older, established ones look perfectly fine, that's definitely a watering problem rather than natural aging. Healthy plants don't sacrifice their young growth unless they're under serious stress. The speed of change provides another reliable indicator. Natural leaf aging unfolds gradually over weeks, giving you plenty of time to observe the progression and decide when to remove the yellowing leaf. Stress-induced yellowing from overwatering accelerates rapidly, sometimes changing dramatically from one day to the next. Understanding this difference means you'll know exactly when to act quickly versus when to simply remove an old leaf and celebrate your plant's natural growth cycle. A single yellowing leaf that starts from the tip and feels firm likely just needs to be snipped away. Multiple leaves yellowing from the base with soft, mushy texture means emergency action is required immediately. This diagnostic skill transforms you from someone who panics at the first sign of yellow into someone who reads their plant's signals accurately and responds appropriately. Once you can tell the difference between natural aging and waterlogging damage, you'll have the confidence to take the right action at the right time. Now that we can diagnose the problem accurately, it's time to take action. If your plant is showing those emergency signs we discussed, you'll need to get it out of its current pot for a thorough inspection and rescue operation. The first step is understanding that waterlogged roots are incredibly fragile and can break off entirely if you use too much force. Those compromised roots simply can't handle the stress of being pulled, and you'll end up losing precious root material that your plant desperately needs for recovery. The challenge you're facing is that wet soil creates a powerful suction effect around the pot walls, almost like a vacuum seal that holds everything in place. Meanwhile, the roots may be so damaged from sitting in waterlogged conditions that they can no longer support the plant's weight during extraction. This combination makes removal tricky and requires patience above everything else. Start by gently tapping the sides and bottom of the pot with your knuckles or a wooden spoon. This tapping motion helps break the soil's grip on the container walls without jarring the delicate root system. Work your way around the entire pot, giving each section several gentle taps. You'll often hear the sound change as the soil starts to loosen and pull away from the walls. If your plant still won't budge after thorough tapping, carefully run a butter knife around the inside edge of the pot. Slide the knife straight down between the soil and the pot wall. Then gently wiggle it to loosen any compacted, wet soil that's creating that stubborn seal. Work slowly and methodically around the entire circumference, being careful not to slice through any roots that might be pressed against the pot walls. The safest extraction method involves tipping the entire pot sideways and supporting the plant at its base with your free hand. Never grab individual leaves during this process, because waterlogged leaves are much weaker than healthy ones and can tear or snap off completely. Instead, cradle the base of the plant where all the leaves emerge from the soil, distributing the weight across your palm rather than concentrating stress on any single leaf. For really stubborn cases where the plant seems permanently stuck, you have a couple of options that might seem drastic but are actually quite practical. If you're dealing with a plastic pot, you might need to sacrifice the container and carefully cut it away from the plant. Use garden shears or strong scissors to make vertical cuts down the sides of the pot, then peel the plastic away piece by piece. Another approach for stubborn extractions involves soaking the whole pot in lukewarm water for about 10 minutes. This technique softens the soil and reduces the suction effect that's holding everything together. Place the pot in a larger container or sink with water that reaches about halfway up the sides. The water will gradually penetrate the soil from the drainage holes, making extraction much easier. While you're working through this process, take a moment to check those drainage holes at the bottom of the pot. Blocked or inadequate drainage is often what created this waterlogged situation in the first place, and you'll want to make sure your next pot has proper drainage to prevent future problems. Once you finally get your plant free from its container, don't be alarmed by what you see. You'll likely encounter a root ball that's dark, mushy, and literally falling apart in your hands. This might look terrifying, but it's exactly what we expected to find given the symptoms you observed earlier. Those black decomposing roots are the reason your plant was struggling, and seeing them confirms that extraction was absolutely necessary. Some sections of the root ball might crumble away completely as you handle them, and that's actually helpful because it removes the most damaged tissue without you having to cut it away. The roots that remain attached, even if they look questionable, are the ones with the best chance of recovery once we clean them up properly. Taking your time with this extraction process preserves whatever healthy roots remain and gives your plant the absolute best chance at recovery. Rushing through removal or using excessive force will only create additional damage that makes recovery more difficult or even impossible. With your patient safely removed from its waterlogged prison, you're now ready to assess what can be saved and what needs to be removed completely. Now we separate the living from the dead in your snake plant's root system, and the decisions you make here determine whether your plant survives or becomes compost. Think of yourself as a surgeon right now, because that's exactly what you're doing. Performing life-saving surgery on your green friend. Breaking. Yep. Healthy snake plant roots should feel firm when you touch them, like a fresh carrot stick that snaps cleanly. They'll be white or pale yellow in color, and when you handle them, they smell earthy and clean, almost like fresh soil after a spring rain. These are the roots that can still absorb water and nutrients effectively, and they're worth fighting to save. Rotten roots tell a completely different story, and they're unmistakable once you know what to look for. They're black or dark brown, feel mushy like overcooked pasta, and may literally fall apart in your hands when you try to examine them. Some are so far gone that they'll disintegrate the moment you touch them, leaving you with stringy, slimy remnants that smell absolutely terrible. Now comes the hard part, and I need you to be brave here. Use clean, sharp scissors or pruning shears to cut away every single bit of dark, soft root material, even if it means removing 70 or 80% of the entire root system. I know that sounds extreme, but here's the truth. It's better to be aggressive with your cuts right now than to leave infected material that will spread rot to the healthy roots later. Every piece of diseased root tissue you leave behind becomes a breeding ground for the bacteria and fungi that caused this problem in the first place. Those harmful microorganisms will multiply rapidly and attack whatever healthy roots remain, turning your rescue effort into a complete failure within days. After each cut you make, wipe your tools with rubbing alcohol to prevent spreading the infection as you work. This step is absolutely critical because your scissors or shears can carry bacteria from one cut to the next, contaminating healthy tissue that would otherwise survive. Think of it like sterilizing surgical instruments between procedures. Don't be discouraged if you're left with just a small handful of healthy roots after this process. Snake plants are remarkably resilient and can regrow from surprisingly little root material. These tough plants have an amazing ability to regenerate their entire root system from even a few healthy strands. So don't give up hope if your root ball looks pretty sparse after surgery. The key is removing every trace of the infection, even if it means cutting away roots that look questionable. When in doubt, cut it out. A snake plant can recover from having most of its roots removed, but it cannot survive if you leave rotting tissue behind to spread the infection. Once you've removed all the bad roots, rinse the remaining healthy ones under lukewarm water to wash away any lingering bacteria or fungi that might still be clinging to the surface. This gentle rinse removes soil particles and microscopic pathogens that could cause problems later, giving your plant the cleanest possible fresh start. After rinsing, allow the cleaned roots to air dry briefly before replanting. This drying period helps any small cuts you made during the pruning process seal themselves against infection. Those tiny wounds need time to form a protective barrier that prevents bacteria from entering through the cut surfaces. The roots might look a bit shriveled after air drying, but that's completely normal and actually beneficial. This slight dehydration toughens the root surfaces and makes them less susceptible to rot when you place them back in soil. This surgical approach might look drastic when you're holding what remains of your plant's root system, but it's the only way to stop the rot and give your plant a genuine fresh start. Every aggressive cut you make now increases your plant's chances of not just surviving, but thriving in its new environment. With clean, healthy roots ready for a fresh start, the next crucial step is creating an environment where this problem can never happen again. The right soil mix is your insurance policy against future root rot, and I'm about to share the exact recipe that's saved countless snake plants in my care. You see, regular potting soil is actually the enemy of snake plants because it's designed to hold moisture for thirsty plants, not drought-loving succulents like your snake plant. That moisture-retaining quality that works so well for ferns and begonias becomes a death trap for plants that prefer their feet dry. Even those commercial cactus mixes you see at the garden center often aren't quite right for snake plants because they still retain more water than these tough plants prefer. I've seen many gardeners switch to cactus soil thinking they've solved the problem, only to find their plants still struggling with the same overwatering issues weeks later. Here's my proven recipe that's worked for me time and time again. 1 part quality cactus mix, 1 part perlite or pumice for drainage, and 1 part coarse sand or small orchid bark chips. Each ingredient plays a specific role in creating the perfect growing environment for your snake plant's roots. The cactus mix provides the basic nutrition your plant needs to grow strong and healthy. It contains the essential minerals and organic matter that feed your plant without overwhelming it with rich, moisture-holding components. Think of it as the foundation that gives your plant what it needs nutritionally while staying relatively lean. The perlite or pumice creates air pockets throughout the soil that prevent water from pooling around your plant's roots. These tiny white pieces act like little sponges that absorb excess moisture temporarily, then release it as the soil dries out. Pumice works especially well because it doesn't float to the surface like perlite sometimes does, staying mixed throughout your soil where it's needed most. More importantly, both materials maintain spaces for air circulation even when the soil is wet, giving your roots the oxygen they desperately need to stay healthy. The coarse sand or small orchid bark chips adds weight and structure to the mixture, preventing the soil from becoming too fluffy or compacted over time. Sand also improves drainage by creating channels for water to move through quickly, while orchid bark provides excellent aeration and breaks down slowly to add organic matter gradually. When you water this mixture thoroughly, it should drain completely within minutes, not hours or days. The water should flow through like it's moving through a colander rather than soaking in like a sponge. This rapid drainage mimics the natural conditions snake plants experience in their native habitats, where rainfall drains away quickly through rocky, sandy soils. Test your soil blend by watering it in a separate container before you plant anything in it. Pour water over the mix and watch what happens. If water pools on top or drains slowly, that tells you the mixture needs more perlite, pumice, or sand to improve its drainage rate. Keep adjusting the recipe until water moves through quickly and smoothly. This mix might look chunky and strange compared to the fine, dark potting soil you're used to seeing. The perlite creates white specks throughout. The sand adds gritty texture, and the bark chips make everything look rough and uneven. But that unusual appearance is exactly what we want for optimal root health. The secret is that water moves through this mixture quickly while still allowing roots to grab a drink as it passes by. Your snake plant's roots get access to moisture without sitting in wet conditions for extended periods. It's like having a drink of water flow past your lips rather than holding it in your mouth. The chunky texture also prevents soil compaction over time. Regular potting soil tends to pack down and become dense, creating waterlogged conditions even with proper drainage holes. This specialized mixture maintains its structure and porosity month after month, year after year. This soil recipe eliminates the guesswork from watering because it's nearly impossible to overwater a plant in properly draining soil. Even if you water too frequently, the excess moisture moves through and away from the roots so quickly that damage simply can't occur. Your rescued snake plant now has everything it needs to thrive in its fresh environment, and you have the knowledge to keep it healthy for years to come. The knowledge you've gained today transforms you from someone who panics at yellow leaves into a confident plant parent who reads the signals correctly. Remember that finger test we started with? Trust those warning signs your plant shows you through yellowing patterns and mushy textures. Never hesitate to perform emergency surgery when that telltale smell appears, because waiting only makes the damage worse. Most importantly, choose pots with proper drainage holes for your replanted snake plant. Those holes are your insurance policy against future waterlogging disasters, allowing excess water to escape instead of pooling around vulnerable roots. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is step back and let our plants dry out between waterings. Plants don't need constant attention to thrive. They need the right attention at the right moments. If this rescue guide helped save your green friend, share it with someone else who might be loving their plants a little too much with that watering can.